Bokja did not sit down. Not immediately. She was a woman who had not been told to sit down in 40 years. Not by a waiter, not by a colleague, not by her late husband who had learned very early in their marriage that certain battles were not worth the cost of fighting them. She stood with her pearls and her posture and her prepared smile, and she looked at her son the way she had always looked at him when he pushed back against her, with a patience that was really just a longer form of dominance, with the calm of a woman who believed that if she waited long enough, the world would always come back around to her position. But Jae-won did not look away. He sat in his chair with Adaeze's hand in his, and he looked at his mother with that still, flat, frozen expression, and something in it, something in the absolute absence of apology in it, made Bokja's knees bend before her mind gave the instruction. She sat. She did not know she had done it until she felt the chair beneath her. 40 years, not once. And her own son had done it with 4 words and a look. The murmur in the hall swelled for a moment and then collapsed into something closer to held breath. 500 people were watching a family break open at its seams, and not one of them could look away. The cameras were still rolling. The drone outside had drifted closer to the latticed doors, as if it too understood that something was happening that needed to be recorded. Jae-won did not raise his voice. He did not stand up. He sat in his chair and he spoke to his mother the way you speak to someone you are no longer afraid of, which is the most dangerous way one person can speak to another. "This is Adaeze Obi," he said. "She is my wife. We were married 40 minutes ago in the ceremony hall at the east end of this estate. You were not there. You told me you had a headache. You sent your cousin Nari to sit in your seat. Do you remember?" Bokja opened her mouth. He did not stop. "I watched Nari sit in the front row in your place, while I stood at the front of that hall and waited for my bride. I watched Adaeze walk toward me in that dress, and I thought, my mother is missing this, and I told myself you were unwell, because that was easier to believe than the alternative." He paused. "You were not unwell. You were in the East Garden having tea with your friends from the Busan Cultural Society, because you had decided that skipping the ceremony would make your entrance to the reception more powerful. You thought arriving after the vows would give you better positioning. You planned it." The color in Bokja's face had been shifting since he sat down. It started as defiance, the high flush of a woman caught mid-performance who refuses to acknowledge the curtain has fallen. Then it moved to something paler, then paler still, until by the time he said the word planned, her face was nearly the color of the white tablecloth beneath her hands. "Do-yun," she said, using the childhood name, the name she used when she wanted him to feel small again, feel 4 years old again, feel like the boy in the photographs on her piano. "Darling, there has been a misunderstanding. If we could just take a moment, the 3 of us, somewhere private." "There is no misunderstanding," he said, "and we will not be going somewhere private. You made this public. You will hear it in public." She closed her mouth. "For 8 weeks, he said, you have been telling your friends, your colleagues, your society circle, that I am marrying a young woman named Mirai Yoon. You told them she was the daughter of developer Yoon from Daegu. You described her. You told people what she looked like. You talked about what a beautiful match it was." He let that sit for a moment. "Mirai Yoon's father called me. He called me personally 3 weeks ago. Very uncomfortable, very apologetic, asking me to clarify the situation because his daughter had been receiving congratulations from people she had never met. He was embarrassed. He was a decent man being put in an indecent position because of something you had set in motion." Another pause. "I lied to him. I told him you were confused, that there had been a miscommunication, that you were unwell. I lied to a decent man to protect you from what you actually are. I will not do that again." Someone at a nearby table exhaled audibly. It was not dramatic, it was just breath, the involuntary release of someone who had been holding themselves very tight while something very heavy moved through the room. Across the hall, an older woman in a blue hanbok reached under the table and found her husband's hand without looking at him. The koi pond outside was visible through the latticed doors, and its surface was perfectly still, and somehow that stillness made everything inside the hall feel louder. Bokja tried again. Her voice had lost some of its architecture. The structure that held it up, the certainty, the preparation, the decades of practice at being the most formidable presence in any room, had developed a crack in it, and the crack was widening in real time. "I am your mother," she said. "I am your mother, and I was trying to protect you. This woman, she is not Jae-won, you must see. You must understand what I was trying to—" "You stood up in front of 500 people," he said, "and you told my wife she was staff. You said the family table was for actual family. You pointed her toward the back of the hall." His voice did not rise. If anything, it got quieter, which was worse. "You did it while the cameras were rolling. You waited until she was sitting alone and visible, and I was not in the room. You chose that moment deliberately. You rehearsed it. I can tell when you have rehearsed something. I have been watching you rehearse things my entire life." Bokja's mouth opened, closed, opened again. "You thought," he continued, "that if you said it loudly enough and publicly enough, I would be too embarrassed to contradict you. You thought I would stand here and look at 500 people looking at me, and I would choose my pride over my wife. You thought you knew me." He looked at her for a long moment. "You do not know me at all." It was not a question. It was not an accusation with heat in it. It was a statement of fact, delivered with the same neutral precision he used in boardrooms, in contract negotiations, in the moments when he had already decided the outcome of something and was simply informing the other party. "You do not know me at all," said the way you say the sky is that direction or the building is closed on Sundays. Simply true, simply final. Bokja's voice, when it came, was smaller than anyone in that hall had ever heard it. "Jae-won, I am your mother." "You were," he said. The hall stopped. Not the murmuring dies down kind of stopping, the absolute kind. The kind where a drone outside keeps humming and a fish moves in a pond and somewhere a door creaks in a breeze, and those are the only sounds in the world because 500 human beings have simultaneously stopped producing noise. Jae-won said it again, quietly, not for the room, for himself, confirming it, closing something. "You were." Bokja made a sound. It was not a word. It was something that lived beneath words, something that came from a place in her chest that her composure and her pearls and her 40 years of being the loudest woman in every room had never quite managed to cover over. It was the sound of a person realizing in real time that the thing they were most afraid of losing had already been lost, and that they had been the one to lose it. Jae-won did not look at her when she made that sound. He had already turned away. He turned to Adaeze, and the frozen quality left his face the moment his eyes found hers, the way a room warms the moment someone opens a window. He looked at his wife. She had not cried. She had been sitting in that chair for 15 minutes in front of 500 people, and she had not let a single tear fall, because Adaeze Obi had learned a long time ago, in operating theaters and boardrooms, and the very specific loneliness of being the only person in certain rooms who looked the way she looked, that if you let them see you break, some people decide that they broke you and spend the rest of their lives believing they have that power. But her eyes were wet, and he could see it. He squeezed her hand. He held it between both of his, the way you hold something that has been in the cold. "I am so sorry," he said quietly, only for her, in English, so she would understand every syllable. "I am so sorry I let her near you. I am so sorry I thought she would behave like a human being. I am so sorry you had to sit in this chair and be strong when you should have been allowed to just be happy." Adaeze looked at him. Her jaw was tight, her back was straight, and beneath the table, her free hand had moved to her lap, and her fingers were resting there, very still, just above the place where, in 9 weeks, a person was beginning. She thought about the envelope. She thought about the speech she had practiced at 4 in the morning, twice, in front of a dark window with Soul behind her. She thought, not yet, not here, not in front of his mother and the cameras and 500 people who have already taken enough of this day. Not yet. She looked at her husband. "I have something to tell you," she said. "Not here, not now," her eyes said. "Later. When it is just us. When today is finished being everyone else's and it can start being ours." Jae-won looked at her for a moment. He nodded very slightly, the small private nod of two people who have developed the vocabulary of each other's silences. He understood that whatever it was not for this room. He stood up. He did not look at his mother. He did not look at the cameras. He did not look at his uncle Daeho or his cousins at table 3, or the elderly family friend at table 11, who had been his father's business partner for 30 years and was now watching all of this with the expression of a man watching a house he helped build come down. He turned to the hall, and his voice, when it came, was the voice he used when a decision had been made and the conversation was over. "My wife is tired. We are going home. Please enjoy the meal. The food is paid for. The night is yours." He helped Adaeze to her feet. He placed his hand at the small of her back, and he walked her out, down the center of the hall, past the tables, past the cameras, past his mother, who was still sitting in her chair, with her pearls catching the chandelier light and her mouth slightly open and the remains of her rehearsed expression dissolving into something no amount of preparation had equipped her for. He did not look back at her, not at the door, not at the gate, not at the long stone path that wound down from the estate to where the car was waiting. He walked forward, only forward, his hand at his wife's back, and he did not look back once. The next part where everything shifts, what Adaeze whispers to him in the car, what it does to him, and what happens 2 weeks later when the morning finds them both in a quiet kitchen, and the real ending of this story begins. Like this video if Jae-won just earned your respect, and subscribe to Story Nova TV so you don't miss what's coming.